Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 29th of March of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. Once again, during the previous nights, both the Russians and the Ukrainians attacked each other with hundreds of drones. The Russians used, according to information we have, 443 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine, and the Russians were tasked just for one thing: to destroy and to ruin the Ukraine's logistics. And during the day, we received lots of updates from Ukraine that there were train delays across Ukraine, significant train delays that most likely Ukraine hasn't faced since the beginning of the special military operation. And this is exactly what the Russians were trying to get. They were trying to destroy the Ukraine logistic and not allow the armed forces of Ukraine to receive additional reinforcements, reserves, arms, weapons, and so on along the line of combat contact due to these delays, because currently the only normal or reliable way how to bring forces for Ukraine, of course, to the line of combat contact is railway service. And the Russians have begun bombing and attacking these infrastructural objects, since the March significantly. As for Ukrainian side, they also attacked the territory of Russia using hundreds of drones, and the sources reported that the Ukrainians were using around 150 drones during the previous night's attack. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that the Ukrainians used 203 drones to attack the territory of Russia. And during the previous night, we also received lots of videos. Most of the videos and articles we have already discussed, but this evening we received another important video, more precisely picture. We received the picture from the settlement of Ust-Luga, where the biggest export terminal of the Russian Federation is located. And we have this picture. Here we can see the consequences of attack, and here we can see that during the previous days, the Ukrainians attacked and damaged and probably destroyed the Rosneft bunker terminal. This one was destroyed. And as for the previous nights, according to fresh satellite pictures that were published today, the Ukrainians most likely damaged significantly or even destroyed the Novatek gas concentrate complex. So the Russians, it seems, decided not even to protect this territory, because they realized that there is no even need for this. Also, we received this picture where we can see how workers were located somewhere in this area, and they were making video of consequences of Ukrainian attack. Another important thing about strikes that were carried out by Russians, once again, that was the biggest attack, massive attack, not the biggest, but that was a massive attack. The Russians used hundreds of drones, but this is not the major attack, and this is not the main attack. The Russians are still ready to carry out a major attack, and most likely this one is going to happen within the next several days, when Russians will use not just hundreds of drones, but dozens of missiles. The most important thing probably of this attack is this video. This video was published today by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see a Russian drone that was flying somewhere over Ukraine, and at some point this drone dropped mines. So this is a very important video that shows that the Russians are trying to attack not just the trains, not just locomotives, substations, or power stations, or warehouses, or ammo depots. The Russians are trying to mine the main logistic lines. And the most important thing, that this video took place, I'm not sure whether the video took place somewhere along the line of combat contact, let's say in the area of the City of Slaviansk, where the Russians are attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. Maybe this video was made, let's say, somewhere in the area of the settlement of Lazova or somewhere else. So now the Russians can drop mines where they want. And the most important thing, that according to this video, just this single drone dropped up to 6 mines. So very difficult to calculate the number of mines, from 4 to 6, something like this, which means if the Russians send 443 drones over the territory of Ukraine, this means that they can drop up to 1,500 mines all over the entire territory of Ukraine, especially along railways, along roads, main logistic lines, in the area of port infrastructure, and so on. So as we discussed, the Russians are tasked right now at this stage of the special military operation to destroy the Ukraine's logistic with one single purpose: not to allow the Ukrainians to receive fuel to receive and to send fuel to the line of combat contact. This is the first thing. And the second thing, not allow the Ukrainians to deploy their troops also in the areas where the Russians are going to launch their major offensive operations and major attacks. As for the previous night, once again, the biggest explosions and the biggest attacks took place in the area of the cities of Odessa, Kryvyi Rog, and so on. Here we can see the city of Odessa the previous night, lots of explosions. The Russians used dozens of drones to attack the territory of the city. So the situation is very complicated, and furthermore, I would like to point your attention once again that drones, missiles is a very big, all these drones and all these missiles are big problems for Ukraine, but now Zelensky understands that there is another problem is brewing on the horizon, and we are talking about Russian satellites. Zelensky is trying to convince the Western countries that Russian satellites is a very bad situation, a very dangerous situation. Zelensky is trying to create a media picture saying that new Russian satellites make photos and videos of the Middle East region, and they provide the Iranians the coordinates, the destinations, positions, and many other things. So this is the reason why the Iranian missile systems and drone systems are so effective when talking about the Middle East. Zelensky is trying to convince the Western countries that it's time to thinking or considering possibilities to bring down Russia's satellites, at least on the low orbit. And telling the truth, based on the fact that Zelensky began talking this way, and based on the situation that Zelensky understands the value of the Starlink system, and he understands what is going to happen if the Russians will obtain their own analog of Starlink system, this can be a game changer. Obviously, Zelensky understands that he doesn't have any other options. So that is why we believe that in 2026, most likely, maybe not even most likely, but there are very high chances that we'll see first cases, first updates when Ukrainians or somebody, third party using Ukrainians, would try to bring down or to destroy the Russian low orbit satellites. And obviously, this is going to be something new in the world when talking about the warfare and the conflict on the faces of wars and conflicts through the world. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contacts. During the previous day, we received lots of very important updates. And first, let's talk about the most important direction. We are talking about the area of responsibilities of the Group of Forces West. We are going to talk about the northern Kupiansk area. And according to the latest changes and according to the reports that were published by different sources, it seems that the battle for the northern Kupiansk direction is about to be finished completely. As you can see, the map during the previous 24 hours has been adjusted significantly. First, we received a video from the most northern parts of the city of Kupiansk on the Ukrainian side. Here we can see how the Skelia assault regiment of the armed forces of Ukraine, the FPV drone operators of this regiment were attacking probably edge positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area. So all these attacks with the FPV drones were taking place right exactly among these buildings, between these buildings, and based on this video we came to the conclusion that either these are edge positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, or the Russians have launched another counter-offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over the city of Kupiansk. So that is why we have added this corridor, but telling the truth, it's very difficult to understand how exactly the Russians got there, but let's wait and see. Obviously, in coming days we will receive additional updates. And the second update was published several hours after the video with FPV drones, and this update was published by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. So first, let's take a look at changes. So this is the situation by the end of the 28th of March. This is the situation by the end of the 29th of March. And according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Kovsharovka. And based on the report that was published by the Minister of Defense, we have adjusted the map. As of the end of the 29th of March, we still haven't received even a single video that can confirm that the Russians indeed managed to capture this settlement. But I would like to remind you that during the March of 2026, we received a video from this area. This video was published on the 19th of March of 2026, and here we can see how Russians, according to the author of this video, here we can see how Russians were patrolling and were moving through the settlement of Kovsharovka. Here we can see lots of episodes. One of the episodes was geolocated right exactly at this point. Russian soldiers were moving there. The second episode was geolocated right exactly at this building, this government office building. And here we saw another episode. So there were episodes during the march that the Russians indeed managed to improve their positions in the settlement of Kovsharovka, and today we received the report. So which means that maybe the Russians managed to indeed to establish complete control over the territory. And now the most important part, what is going to happen next. So as of the end of the 29th of March, we received lots of updates. Since the beginning of this year, more precisely, the Russians stated that they captured Podole, they captured Kupiansk, they captured Glushevka, they captured Kovsharovka, and according to all these updates, there is just one village settlement left on the Ukrainian side. We are talking about the settlement by the name of Novoosinovo. During the previous 24 hours, we received just a video from this area. Here we can see how Russians were attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area. And so which means that maybe the Russians are trying to take on the complete control, and they will try to take on the complete control of this settlement in coming days. And of course, if it happens, then we can say that the Russians finished the battle for the eastern bank of the river Oskol, and then Russians most likely will try to move further in the western direction. And it seems that the Russians will try before the end of the conflict, if this conflict ever ends, to establish complete control over the territory between the border between Ukraine and Russian Federation, the river of Seversky Donetsk, and the river of Oskol. So as you can see, there are blue lines and there is a pocket, and most likely Russians will try to take this pocket under complete control, because Russians understand that Ukrainians, to support their contingent to the east of the river of Seversky Donetsk, would be forced to always use logistic lines and so on. And we know that the Russians know how to fight in this situation when there are rivers, when rivers are the only way how to supply and support the contingent of the armored forces of Ukraine. We saw something similar around the settlement of Liman in the area of the city of Kupiansk. So nothing special and nothing new the Russians will see in this area, and the Russians will enter the battle for the southeastern parts of the city of Kharkiv with big experience on their shoulders, behind their back. So which means that most likely the northeastern and the southeastern parts of the Kharkiv direction will see the battles for these territories, and these battles is inevitable. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Liman direction. During the previous day, the Russians attacked the city of Slaviansk with drones. We received lots of videos. This morning, the Russians were attacking temporary deployment points of the armored forces of Ukraine. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that just yesterday, the Russians captured the settlement of Brusovka. We had a report about this yesterday, and today we start receiving updates that the Russians established complete control over main logistic lines that Ukrainians are using or were using to support their contingent on the territory of the city of Liman. So just in this video, we can see at least 2 episodes of how Russians were attacking this bridge and this crossing as well. So the Russians established control over Brusovka, and this allowed them to cut several supply and major supply lines. Now the Russians established certain control over this territory with drones, and probably from the area of the settlement of Brusovka, and this is something like almost complete encirclement of the city of Liman itself. And we received the video from the area of the blue lakes of the city of Liman. So these are blue lakes. This is the territory, how it calls, and as you can see, there was an FPV drone attack in this area, which means that most likely the Ukrainians still have possibility to support their forces using probably this supply line, but this is already not enough to support the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of city itself. So we believe that due to this situation and configuration of the map, we believe that the days of the city of Liman are numbered. It seems that the fall of this settlement is imminent and will take place much faster than anyone can expect. As for the Alexandrovka-Nikolaevka direction, during the previous 24 hours, lots of attacks, lots of explosions were recorded. The Russians are pushing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, and every single day the Russians are getting closer and closer to the city of Slavyansk from the east. As for the Konstantinovka direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded as well. The most important thing is that pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that the Russians launched a counter-offensive operation in this area, and now the Russians are trying to recapture the territories they lost. And another important thing is that during the previous 24 hours, we received a video where we can see how the Russians were attacking in the direction of the city of Orekhov using dozens of vehicles and hundreds of soldiers. So this video was published yesterday, and today we received first geolocations. So Russian convoys were recorded to the north of the settlement of Robotina. The Russians were trying to break through Ukraine's FPV drone defenses with the purpose to bring as many as possible infantry and vehicles in the direction of Novodanilovka, with the purpose to accumulate a critical mass before moving further in the direction of the settlement of Orekhov. As of the video, most of the episodes took place in this area, but it doesn't mean that the Russians haven't managed to get the city of Orekhov itself. One thing is clear, that now the Russians are testing and checking Ukraine's defense in this city. So most likely they will continue their attempts to break through these Ukraine defenses with the purpose to answer the city itself and to establish complete control over the territory. So as you can see, the Russians are intensifying their attacks in the direction of Orekhov from the south, from the east, and from the west, while the Ukrainians are trying to repel upcoming attacks from the Russian side from the area of Uspenovka, Gulyai-Polye, Velika Novoselovka line. We have covered most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. And first, let's talk about the United States of America. Once again, today is already a Sunday evening, and I would like to remind you that the financial markets closed on Friday evening, and the oil prices were on the level of $96.64 per barrel when talking about WTI, and the Brent price was $110.41 per barrel. So this is already a late evening of Sunday of 29th of March of 2026. So within the next several hours, oil markets will open, and it seems, and most likely, the prices will go further. And most likely during the day we'll see significant rise in the prices. I'm not saying that this is 100% sure information, but I'm making my conclusions based on the events that took place during this weekend when the markets were closed. First of all, I would like to remind you that during this weekend, the Yemenis entered the conflict on the side of Iran, and during these weekends, the Yemenis sent several missiles in the direction of Israel, and the position of Yemenis is very dangerous, not just for Israel but also for Saudi Arabia. As of the end of the 29th of 2026, or March of 2026, the Yemenis stated that there is a possibility that they will block the Mandeb Strait, but they still haven't made this. Most likely, they're waiting when all markets, global financial markets, open, and most likely when they open, they will announce this, and they will probably confirm this with several attacks from their side. And this is the first thing that will push the oil prices higher. And the most important thing is not just, let's say, the state of Israel, and that the Yemenis are able to attack Israel from the south with missiles and not to allow anybody to use the Strait of Mandeb. Of course, these two things are very important, but the most important thing about the situation and about the position of Yemeni, of course, is the state of Saudi Arabia. For example, this is a very important important article that I would like to discuss with you. This one. So this is the oil infrastructure of Saudi Arabia, and as you can see, Saudi Arabia has two biggest, not just Saudi Arabia, but the entire Middle East has at least two very important areas where these states of Persian Gulf and the Middle East are able to export oil and gas. The first one is, of course, the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz that was blocked by the Iranians on the 28th of February of 2026, so months ago, and the Persian Gulf states and the Middle East states lost possibilities to use these territories, to use this infrastructure to export oil. So, but Saudi Arabia has another interesting territory in the western part of the state. So this is the territory that they can use for export purposes. We are talking about this, for example, city of Rabigh, and we have here a very big infrastructure, oil export infrastructure that can be used for these purposes. So there are lots of objects of port infrastructure, oil infrastructure, export infrastructure that Saudi Arabia can use to export oil. And according to different sources, Saudi Arabia has already retransferred most of their roads right exactly in this direction. So, for example, the Strait of Hormuz shutdown has prompted Saudi Arabia to run east-west pipeline as at full capacity of 7 million barrels per day. So this is what the Saudi Arabia have done. But we know that currently Saudi Arabia, maybe behind the doors, maybe not officially, but the sources are saying that they are interested in the prolongation of the conflict with Iranians. So that is why if Saudi Arabia decides to declare officially they're going to join the coalition, most likely the Houthis will begin bombing and attacking the western shore of Saudi Arabia along the Red Sea, which will can lead to the situation when the entire export of the state will collapse, which means that from this for a moment the prices for oil will increase significantly, because Iranians most likely will not be able to attack so far. Most of the missiles would be destroyed, but Yemenis will have this possibility. So this is the situation. This is what happened during this weekend. Another important thing is that more states are joining the conflict in the Middle East. When talking about the coalition, during the previous days, we received lots of updates that the president of Ukraine came to this area to promote his air defense systems, his anti-drones. So now everybody understands that Zelensky stands on the side of the coalition. Maybe nobody asked him to join the coalition, but he decided to do him without any permission or without any call or without any ask from any other state. He joined the coalition on the side of the coalition. He signed lots of agreements, and he will provide more weapons and arms or technologies to the states in exchange for fuel. As we know, Zelensky, according to information we have, signed an agreement that will allow him to receive a fuel up to a year. So he believes that this will enough him to stand and to survive during the major Russian offensives that are going to take place in 2026, with the purpose to break the situation completely. So this is the second thing that happened during the weekend. The third thing is that the United States of America finished the deployment of first groups of troops in this area, and the United States of America is already ready to start something, maybe to take under complete control an island like Hark Island or Kesh Island or something like this. So everything is ready, and this will also push the prices. And another thing is that during this weekend, the parties of the conflict increased or expanded the targets and objects of attacks. So at the beginning of this conflict, we saw attacks just only on objects of oil infrastructure, export infrastructure, port infrastructure, military infrastructure. But this weekend, the parties began bombing and attacking different plants, industrial zones that have no connections with with export of oil or with military things. The Iranians, according to information we have, attacked the biggest aluminium plants on the territory of United Arab Emirates and the state of Bahrain. So we have lots of videos, lots of pictures where the fire anomalies and so on. Furthermore, the coalition attacked different plants and steel factories on the territory of Iran itself. We have lots of pictures, lots of videos on this matter. Furthermore, and the most important thing is that today the Iranians, or maybe even Hussites, who knows, attacked the southern parts of Israel, the pharmacy territory, the Neot Chevron industrial zone. So we have lots of videos published from this territory that as a result of attack, this industrial territory was damaged or maybe even destroyed. So which means that in coming days we'll see the situation when it will be completely, doesn't matter what kind of object to attack. The most important thing that this is an economical object, the object of infrastructure, and so that is why this object would be hit both by the coalitions and by the Iranian side. During all this chaos and all these attacks, we received the report that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, stated that Israel is going to increase the buffer zone with Lebanon trying to force the pro-Iranian proxies to fall back from the southern parts of the state. And during the previous days, additional changes were recorded. So as you can see, the Israeli forces, Israel Defense Forces, are moving further, pushing the pro-Iranian forces also further in the northern direction. And according to the Prime Minister of Israel, this process will continue. So it's just several hours before Monday comes, before Monday starts, and which means that markets, financial markets all over the world will open, and then we'll see what is going to happen. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.